Yes.
From Venezuela. Yeah, Chavez.
So the guy that took his place.
All right, do we want to go change this to start?
He wrote these, he made this comment, and then we responded, we wrote this song, and it was a piece, and we were going through it, you know. And so, you know, I like his politics and everything. But just, I mean, I liked him, so I was just disappointed to find out.
Something must have happened with him, or maybe he's just tired after like decades of doing the business.
Or maybe he just canceled.
Or maybe he's just straight up asshole.
Maybe he always looked at
I
that.
you know,
I mean, he would be revered in time, not to be an asshole.
Yeah, no, he is loved by the people because he
Started in
fights for their
7-9.
side, you know,
Yeah.
people, he, you know, tries
Or
to
actually
embrace it,
7-15.
all about, you know, justice and all that stuff.
7
Another person that's like Canada, big time, is Mariano Rivera.
Pre-production.
He's an idol over there.
Yeah.
Oh, he just retired last year. You know who he is, right? He's the best closer in baseball history. He just retired.
Oh, basically, yeah.
Somebody's gonna have to like
Yeah, and he's the best
check maybe
closer
on
in
Control
history of
F5
baseball.
on that. I'm pulling that up right
Well,
now.
my grandfather lived in Panama for a long time. Well, my grandfather
gotta check sound. You're gonna have to
he was
check sound
born in
for your
Barbados,
phone.
and he moved to Panama. And
All right.
they there for years.
Okay.
And, you know, like
that? You won't hear it either.
No, I know.
He was married and had kids, and he had a woman and had kids. And so
We get
I
there.
had cousins that lived there. Because he actually went from Barbados to Panama, left Panama, went to Cuba, went back to Barbados, then went back. Everywhere he went, he had two families.
You ready?
He met my grandmother. And
All right. Count me in, buddy.
she was from Montserrat. And then they came to the United States and had four kids. And one of my kids is my father. But all of those children that he had,
You did
they
put
all
auto play on the end?
and they all met each other.
Did?
Oh, wow.
And so the only ones they haven't found is the ones in Cuba because we can't get them. But like,
Yeah, your grandfather was the man.
oh man, I found
You ready?
so much out about this man. It's unreal. Like,
Just give me the countdown.
you know,
For those of you watching in YouTube land, yeah, we're a few minutes behind. That's what happens when things don't work quite perfectly.
That's
All right, good.
one of my first cousins. Now his father.
Hey, and welcome back to Udicci.TV. Today's been quite the short day for us, and it looks like we're getting started a little bit late. For those of you who have been just sitting out there waiting, we greatly appreciate your understanding. And interestingly, tonight our topic is going to be kind of talking about almost kind of what just happened, which is like really taking a look at really what really happened and being okay with it. Because basically, here's the reality. We know where we are right now. We're two guys relying on the goodness and the heart and the willingness and the charity of a lot of other people to just kind of get where we're going. So we're about 20 minutes late because, quite frankly, we've got to work with the resources that we have. So anyways, if this is your first time tuning in, I want to thank you for joining us on Udicci.TV out of Rochester, New York, down here at Blue Bar and Grill in Gates, and we'd ask you to come on out and join the conversation about what's going on. And the more you understand about what's going on, the more you'll get it. We're an economic development company committed to helping our communities and our neighborhoods grow. We're doing that with a lot of good people in Rochester, New York, Lexington Federal Credit Union, a producer of this show, a lot of other good friends that are out here tonight. Of course, you're going to see Real Talk 360 with Julio and Tag, and it's really kind of a great thing. Now, what you're seeing here is kind of just our attempt at making a difference in life. And we do that each and every week by trying to bring different perspectives and allow people to maybe see things just a little bit differently. We want to kind of challenge your thinking on occasion because we know that that's important. And with that, tonight we're going to talk about truth, or true, if you will, with the idea being is that is there a truth, or is there simply your perspective? And I want to start tonight with a quote. It's from Henry Emile, and he says, "There is no respect for another without humility in oneself." And I thought that was a very interesting quote. Just to say it again, there is no respect for others without humility in oneself. And you've got to kind of think about that and say, is that true? Do I really have to have a healthy understanding of myself before I can even value another person? And when I thought about that, and I think about the conversations I've had with people, it occurs to me that I think that is true. I think we have to have a healthy understanding of ourselves, and sometimes that's not enjoyable to look at. It's sometimes not enjoyable to really look at yourself and admit the truth about yourself. And most of the time we don't want to see that. And why we don't want to see it, it's flat out scary. Sometimes admitting who you are, it's just a matter of going, am I really this weak person? But what's wonderful and what's wonderfully true is that the moment that you recognize just how truly weak you are is when you start to realize where your strength comes from. It's not in something we pretend, it's not in something that we demand. It is because we start understanding and looking for others around us who we can grow with and who aren't going to judge us or anything else, and there's a lot of strength that comes from that. Now, humility asks us to be vulnerable. It asks us to face those deep truths about ourselves. And sometimes we have to cry because that's how much we've hurt other people. And sometimes we don't even understand what we were doing when we were acting in this manner that we didn't at first recognize because we kind of didn't want to see it. And this vulnerability, it requires courage. Being vulnerable requires great courage because you in all likelihood will be hurt. You'll actually see how much you've hurt others. And then suddenly you're going to be in this position where you're looking around and you've had these revelations about these truths that you've tried to hide from yourself from all of these years, but you knew that they were there. But with all that you were, you kind of avoided admitting them. And then suddenly they're there, as clear as day. And you begin looking around and you begin seeing this thing that's in so many other people and you just want to free them from it, but you realize this is your journey. And it is yet for them to discover those things within themselves that they must release. And we need to be cautious. We need to be cautious as we approach this. We need to be cautious about the hope that we put in other people and the trust that we put in others, because surely we have to do that. We have to trust other people. We have to have a hope in humanity, if you will. But they will let us down. Others will always let us down. But that's okay too, because it is the journey that helps us become who it is that we really are. Now, our pride wants us to show that, we're not afraid. It wants us to stand atop a mountain and say, I have all the answers, follow me. But if we're unwilling to face the truth, and that is to embrace the strength if we're not willing to face the truth, I guess what I'm saying is that we really have no integrity. And that's a tough thing, because without integrity, we only have empty words. And that is what I'm starting to see so much of. I'm thinking about all of these words that people say that have no substance. Challenges that we walk away from and questions that we don't want to answer. And I don't know how many times now I've been asked a question and I'm willing to answer it, and then I'll turn right around and ask the same question of the person that I'm talking to. And they're offended. They actually are to the point where I'm not going to answer that question. And then I start to wonder, why is it that people don't want their words challenged? Are we angered because maybe we don't understand? Or is the answer something we simply don't want to acknowledge? And that's the scary part. See, integrity demands truth. And for something to be strong, it must have integrity. By definition and nature, truth must have integrity, and integrity must be true. Opinion cannot be accepted as fact, and action should not be taken without understanding. And when we do that, when we go out and we begin spewing words and taking action without understanding, we simply weaken the fabric of society. And can society be at its best when truth is avoided? I'm going to say no, it really can't. And it's very challenging. But that's what we're here to do. We're here to challenge those perceptions that people have that they want to call truth. So with that, we're actually going to bring up my co-host, Tess, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. And we're going to have some fun. But first, we're going to catch up on this week's going-ons. And bring up the chair.
Don't make me carry the chair.
Well, then go pick it up. All right, I'll come and get it. There we go. All right. Here, Miss Tess.
Thank you.
Have a seat. So first and foremost, let's talk Najir and Hargrave.
Oh, he's doing fine. It was hard. It was a long trip. Took us, we left here, to a 9-hour trip from here to Chatham, Virginia, although I found out that my sister is actually only about 40 minutes away.
Oh, perfect.
So that's
Perfect.
pretty cool, yeah.
So do you get to see your sister often?
I have not seen my sister
Now
often,
you'll
so
have
now
reason
I
for
will
it.
be able to
Very
see her.
nice.
So we won't see him again until Thanksgiving. We're not supposed to have contact for the first 3 weeks, but he's already Skyped us.
He already Skyped? So what, does he have a phone?
FaceTime. He has
Is that-
well, they take their phones, but he has a computer, and it's really his first computer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he's Skyping
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
that'll last a couple days. Then he's going to forget all about you guys back here, and he's going to be having fun.
I know. They said the first year is the hardest, so it's really exciting. There were kids there from all over the world, and it was a little hard letting go, but it was good. It's all good.
So how do you feel? How did he feel? What do you think was going through his heart, his mind as he was doing this?
I was able to see that he had remembered everything how to put this. I tried to make sure before he left that he talked to every male that I knew,
Okay.
because that's one of the things that's missing in his life.
Yeah.
And I could tell that he had spoken to my boyfriend, because when he met his TAC officer,
Okay.
my daughter and I noticed, we said, wait a minute, he's standing at attention. He's a little guy, and he was standing like this, and we couldn't figure out why is he. And then my boyfriend said, because I told him, whenever you're talking to an officer, you need to stand at attention. And he had said yes to him, and his TAC officer said, it's yes, sir, no, sir. He said, yes, sir.
Nice.
So I think today they started practicing their parade. They did the obstacle course. So there's this photo of him in the chapel that they put on Facebook this afternoon, and he looks so tired. He's just sitting there like, oh my goodness.
Well, hopefully they'll continue to wear him out even more.
I hope so.
It's funny, you talk about the whole standing at attention. I'm going to tell you that's something that will never leave him. Right? So after he graduates and he goes on to college, and 10 years after that, you're going to be someplace, and I find myself, and I know this because you'll be at some sporting event, you'll be at some concert, you'll be somewhere where the Star Spangled Banner plays, and he'll go to attention. Because it's just this habit that you come into, and I still do it today. I'm like, oh, wait a second, I don't need to do that.
Well, he was really open to everything, because at first I didn't say anything, but I watched this, and people stuck their hand out, and he was shaking their hand, and he was kind of doing the limp handshake. So I just told him, I said, listen, put your hand out, give me your hand. And so I grabbed his hand, I shook it. I said, that's what you need to do. And then the next time I watched him, he put his hand out. So hopefully.
So you're feeling good.
I'm feeling good.
I mean, obviously
So
you're
good that I
missing it.
power napped over
Yeah,
here
exactly.
on the couch.
Yeah. Those of you who couldn't hear her snoring.
Because I do snore, and I was out.
No, you weren't snoring. You weren't snoring at all. But that had to be a very emotional weekend for you. The trip is obviously a long trip, a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
But very emotional.
Right.
But that's got to be an enduring emotion. That's going to be a memory that's going to last forever.
Last forever.
Because for as bittersweet as it was, you believe that it was for his good. And,
Right.
And
And they told us when we see them, I think Parents Weekend is the first one, that we won't recognize them.
That's fine.
We won't recognize
That's good stuff.
them. That's good stuff.
So, with that, and this is kind of a good time because I think about the military and the values that they instill, and I know he's not in the military, but ultimately same idea. This week I've been so stuck on people whose words and actions just don't line up. And they say the right things. And in their, I swear, in their mind, they are convinced that they have an understanding of the words that they're speaking. But it's like it's not sunk into their heart. It's like they don't really get it. They just, in their mind, know the right words to say. And I've been seeing this in so many places. And I got to tell you, it's become, I was sharing with a friend earlier today, it's become so almost incredibly frustrating for me.
How old are you now?
40.
Wait till 20 years from now. Then you'll know how exhausting it is.
Right, because you're like sitting here talking to people going, hey, you know, I've got some orange juice. Yeah, I get it, it's orange juice. Would you like some orange juice? Yeah, I'll have the orange juice. 10 minutes later, well, did you want the orange juice? Yeah, they drink it down. How was that? How was what? The orange juice. Did I have orange juice? Like, it's like they're convinced. And that's a horrible example, so just let it go. But that's what it feels like. It's like you're sitting here arguing with people. I don't know how many times this week now, and it's, I'm sitting here talking to somebody, and I'm being challenged, and they ask me a question. Mm-hmm. So what do you think about this? And I answer it. I give them my honest opinion. And I'm like, so what do you think about this? And they get angry. It's like, and I'm going, wait, you just asked me a question. I answered it. It's a challenging question. I asked it back to you, and you get angry.
But you know why?
Pride.
No, it's not pride. No. They weren't listening to you to begin with.
That's the thing.
They weren't listening to you. It was rhetorical.
How about this? They weren't listening with their heart.
But they weren't listening with their ears, period. It was rhetorical. They were asking the question for the sake of asking the question, but they didn't really want to know what you thought. Otherwise, why would they ask the question and not?
Well, how about this? Are they asking that question of themselves then? Right? Because they really don't want to face the answer, seemingly. It becomes kind of very kind of hollow. So I began this. So let me ask you this. What do you think of this saying? There is no respect for others without humility in one's self.
Sounds okay.
It kind of makes sense.
Yes.
Right?
Sounds like there's a lot of self-analysis going on here, Chuck.
Right, it does. I'm good with that.
I've been going with the flow for these last month. I think it's a lot of self-analysis.
Hold on. Now let me bring this out of it because it's not self-analysis. Burger King. Now you'll pull this all in. Okay, so Burger King. Did you see this week that Burger King is buying Tim Hortons?
No, I did not see that.
So Burger King is buying Tim Hortons. And people are all upset because Burger King is buying Tim Hortons, an American company, buying a Canadian company, and relocating, if you will, their corporate headquarters to Canada to avoid taxation. Okay.
Burger King is moving to Canada.
Okay, right? And that's where I'm at. I'm sitting here going like, okay, if I were running Burger King and I could save money here and still it doesn't hurt me and return to my shareholders is the same, what's the problem, right? But all over now, and you get it because I've got all these different pockets on my Facebook. Oh, I can't believe Burger King did this. They're avoiding taxation. Boycott Burger King. And I asked the simple question. I asked the simple question. Well, have you ever used a coupon? Well, yeah. So why is it okay for you to save money, but not the corporation?
Well, I would ask an even better question. Why are you eating at Burger King?
That's a wholly different conversation, right? Because I had the coupon. It's because I had the coupon that I ate there. But it's funny to me because we have all these corporations that people have just determined are evil.
Well,
right?
but quite honestly, in many cases, people may assume a company is an American company when in fact it's not an American company anyway.
Yeah, Burger King in this case
but I'm just saying, you may not know.
Here's what really got to me in having a conversation with a few different people about this. I said, I understand your frustration. But honestly, if you were running Burger King and you could find a cheaper place to operate and get a better return on your investments and give more profit back to your shareholders, the people who invested in your company, and you keep all of the jobs going and are able to improve your brand and your distribution, what's wrong with that?
And the response
They're not paying taxes. And here's what really
But
got
no
me.
one wants to pay taxes.
Nobody wants to pay taxes. Do you take the write-off of your home interest? Yes. Okay. That's my thing. People want to hold everybody else to a different standard.
Right.
That's really what I'm getting at here, is everybody wants to hold themselves to a different standard. To which I pushed back. I said, I understand that we want people to pay taxes, but here's the reality. We're the citizens of this country. If businesses are leaving because they find it advantageous to do business elsewhere, maybe we shouldn't be blaming the business, and maybe we should be looking at our tax code and saying, hey, let's fix our tax code, right? And as citizens, we get to vote in the government that sets our tax code. But why don't we want to do that? We don't want to take the time to learn the tax code. We don't really want to take the time to understand the economy. We don't want to take the time to understand business, but we do want to complain.
Well, I think that hits the nail on the head, that people really want to just complain. Because many times people don't understand how things work. And sometimes that's intentional, on the part of the individual. But also sometimes things are made more complicated than they need to be so that the average person can't understand it.
I would agree. That's definitely, that would be, I'll say, the political side of things, where they'd rather keep people uninformed or leading them to believe something so they can stay elected.
Right.
I'd agree with that. But I think, and I think that's what I'm kind of talking about tonight, I think that we do the same things to ourselves. And I think that we sometimes, we just want something to be so because we don't want to take the effort to actually educate ourselves. We don't want to take the effort to actually challenge our own belief system, because then suddenly what? Do you look like a fool because you thought Burger King was wrong? No. You look like an educated person because you were willing to be corrected.
Well, and when you're looking at businesses, you have to, I taught an introduction to business class, and I remember telling the students often, why do you think businesses are in business? They're in business to make money.
That's right.
Otherwise, what's the point? It's not a hobby.
That's it. And everybody has their job. And if I now go, everybody has their role in society, if we would all start just stepping up to that, how much more wonderful would it be?
I think that now that I think about it, this business with Burger King and Tim Hortons, is it going to be transparent to us as consumers? Here's why I'm asking. If Burger King is still, if there's still going to be a Burger King on 14th Street, even though the headquarters is in Toronto,
right?
Then what has happened to offend us?
Because they pay less taxes in America.
But our whole thing is that the government is making us pay too much taxes anyway.
I 100% agree.
Anyway. So why are we?
That's it.
I don't understand.
But that's my point. The same people who sit here and argue like how bad they are, like Burger King is, because we're losing all of these jobs to other countries. Like, stop. The real problem is you, the individual, who is unwilling to accept that this world is changing before your eyes.
Yeah.
That this world is a global economy in ways that we never before understood, even 10, 20 years ago. And to just sit back on the sidelines and say the thing that's going to get a rise from the crowd, or say the thing that's going to keep you in a crowd, you got to start understanding.
But then that makes me think the issue isn't really about taxes.
Probably not.
The issue is really about them, not even about them buying Tim Hortons. The issue is that they're moving their headquarters out of the country. It's not about taxes.
It's
not, now that I think about it, the way you explained it, it's not about the taxes. It's this idea of foreign.
Right.
Foreign.
It's foreign hurting us.
Right.
And
If it's foreign, it's no good.
And the question becomes now, who's our neighbor? Right? And our neighbor nowadays is not the person living next to us. It's the person living over in India. I mean, we are in, whether people like it or not, and I wish the economy was only in the 19th ward. I wish all we did was, visited our local people and that was the economy. And absolutely, we need to start buying local. But people need to stop thinking that everybody else is the problem and start understanding that if they would actually take the time to get it out of their head and into their heart and then start acting on what is real instead of just this perceived injustice.
Well, I think that part of that is we have sort of this xenophobia going on anyway. That's a tradition in our country. I mean, this whole idea that we encourage everyone to speak one language, only English, and we encounter people from other countries that speak 3, 4 languages. And so it just kind of filters out throughout in these different areas, this idea of foreignness. But the reality is the world isn't closed anymore. I mean, the internet alone. I started a company. Part of the reason I started an e-business was because I wanted to be able to reach customers all over the world. Now, my product is made in the United States, and I've stood firm by that, but I still want to reach the consumers all around the world.
And if it wasn't for that global customer, you wouldn't have a big enough customer base in your hometown to actually justify the business.
Well, and quite honestly, a lot of my business last year came from outside the United States.
Right. So, I mean, there's huge advantage to it. And I think that's my bigger point here. And you just hit it. We live in this country where there's only one language spoken, and fine, if we want to get into legalities, and I get that, but how about we start embracing that other perspectives have real value?
Right.
And we have to stop this, well, they're just wrong because I am right.
Right.
And that now brings me from Burger King to Ferguson. Right?
Oh, boy.
So the stuff going on, okay, I need to be able to change here.
Oh, boy.
Well, because this is my thing.
Well, before you move to Ferguson, because I chewed somebody up and spit him out about that today. The other day, and I didn't really want to do that, but they were connecting two things that I think are separate. And so I just wanted to make one point about being, again, a citizen in the world, company in the world. Even though my company is here, my products are made here, I intend to have my website translated into Spanish.
Absolutely.
To give access to other customers. So
have you thought about translating it to Canadian?
Oh yeah, my friend Adam's gonna do that for me. Actually. Whenever we have long conversations, sometimes I'll just look at him and say, "You're speaking Canadian again." But anyway.
So about Ferguson, what do you mean?
So you go ahead. You open that can of worms.
Because here's my point on Ferguson. Here's what I want everybody to hear. Here's the absolute, as close to truth as you're going to hear. The reality is, there were 4, 5 eyewitnesses to the whole thing. Right? One is dead. One is the police officer. And I don't care if the number's 10. What that means is that there are that very small number of people out of 7 billion people in this world that absolutely know what happened that day. And even those people who watched it, all watched it from a different perspective, all watched it from a different experience in life.
If 2 people watch 2 things, or 2 people tell a story, there's 2 versions.
There's 2 versions of it. So, in the grand scheme of things, 99.999% of the people in the world don't really know the truth. But yet we have all these people out there right now. This is truth. This is fact. This is truth. And they're taking action on what they're saying is fact. And they're acting and convinced of the truth that they've decided to be true for their life. They've decided are the facts based on what is right now very limited information
Well,
in the grand scheme of the
in
world.
in the grand scheme of things, and that's why I said I don't know how deep you want to get into.
Nope,
this
that's more than that.
conversation
That's more the
about
surface
Ferguson.
level where I'm not trying to get into Ferguson
Yeah,
as
I
much as,
understand.
right?
But what I mean, because you used Ferguson as an example, I the best way I can think of it is going back to the Canada Burger King Tim Hortons thing, where you started out saying, well, you know, the issue is because the taxes. It's not about the taxes.
No.
It's about the foreignness. The thing with Ferguson is not about the truth about what happened in that car, outside of that car.
Thank you.
It's about the history.
It's about the history.
It's about the history.
That's right. That's right. 100% agree.
History and tradition of events that occurred.
That led up to it. It's about the iniquity of number of police officers to population. It's about all of those things.
And it's about people. I lost my shoe. It's also about. Where is it?
I'll get
God
your
damn
shoe.
it.
Get your shoe.
I got it.
All right, we're good.
It's about quite honestly, and the longer you live, I think the longer you deal with it, you get more frustrated. It's about people being tired. They're tired of social situations, and I think that what you see, some of what you see playing out, and we've talked about that before. I think that some of what you see playing out, and the reason it's playing out the way it is because it's young people reacting to it.
Yep.
And it's young people who bring about change.
And that to me is actually an encouraging piece. I'm 100% agreeing with you that people are tired, but here's the reality. Simply because you're tired doesn't give you the right, doesn't give you the ability, better word, doesn't give you the ability to take what you don't know and now make it as fact and as truth. Because truth is independent of opinion. Whatever happened that day, that's what happened. Your experience up to that point in life, all of that, yeah, I get that it plays into you as a person. But you've got to stop acting as if your perception, your opinion is fact. Because that stops us from having reasonable discourse.
But that's why I'm saying that Ferguson really isn't a good example. I don't think.
Okay.
Is a good example to talk about where you're trying to go with this.
Okay.
Because it's every social uprising or whatever you want to call it has a catalyst.
Yes.
Has a spark.
Yes.
Something is the trigger.
Yep.
And in this case, the shooting of that kid, it was the spark. And it really doesn't matter what led up to that shooting. It doesn't really matter what the truth of that shooting is. The only thing that really matters, that really is the catalyst, is the image of that child laying on the ground.
See, now-
wait, for hours.
Hold on.
Literally
Hold
hours
on.
with blood.
Hold on. See, I have to disagree with you because simply just because history brought us to that point and that young man being shot being the reason, that catalyst, that spark, it's not going to accomplish what needs to be fixed from the history because the movement begins divided. Because you can't sit there and there's no way of bringing unity when people are saying, this is the truth. Now, if we're going to sit there and say, there's racism, yes, good, next subject. But if we're going to sit there and say, this is what happened, and people are going to go out rallying behind it, all you're going to get is people going on the other side going, I'll take a step further. And I'm right there with, we're a military family. Right? Now you're joining us. How about the general that was killed in the line of duty?
Joining what?
Huh?
Joining what?
The military
I
family.
feel like narrator. I'm not joining the military
You're
family.
You're not. But indirectly, right? You guys just planted the first seed in your family, which I get is going to go on to college.
Yes.
But the military structure that has value, right? I was talking with somebody today about the whole idea of situational awareness and, you know, what it means to be a cop and what it means to be in the military and how you always have to be 100% aware and you need to be basing what's going on and what you're thinking based on your prior experience, exactly what it is that we're talking about. And all of that matters, and we have to put that to the police, and we have to do all that, but here's what happens. We take a thing like Ferguson. We make this the catalyst for change. Now on another side, all these military people out there defending our beliefs of freedom, and we've got this general that dies, and not a single celebrity shows up to his funeral. Not a single person from the White House shows up to his funeral, but we've got this thing over in Ferguson that is, you know, there's sufficient question as to what happened, and we get celebrity coverage and we get White House staff over to that. That's a problem.
But see, I don't think the fact that they showed up is the problem. The problem that you have is with the media. That's the problem.
The problem I have is with the people.
The problem, but I mean the problem you're describing.
Uh-huh.
The problem you just described was the problem of the media, because the media chose not to focus on that general's death.
Right.
The media, if the media focused on that general's death, then perhaps celebrities would have been there, and it would have been, for example, I don't know where I saw it. I mean, these last few weeks I've had enough. I want to take a bath in Clorox and just not participate in any of it.
That's how I feel.
But for example, those folks on Fox News, Hannity and all of them, they were saying, well, where was Al Sharpton? You know, why aren't they having these things in Chicago about the black on black crime? And well, they did in November.
Right.
Just because you didn't know about it,
right,
and just because the media chose not to promote that doesn't mean it didn't happen. And so I think that those celebrities that show up and those who are supporting Ferguson and the protests in Ferguson, more power to them. The issue that you have, I think, is what the media portrayal of it. And
no, it's really not. It is that what I'm seeing, just like the Burger King, and just like what I'm experiencing in personal life now around me, it's these people who are convinced of their own understanding, and therefore you cannot have a reasonable conversation.
But the point that, see, I think that, was it point, counterpoint?
Yeah.
I think the point is, those people, us, we feel like you can't have that conversation. It's been impossible to have that conversation. Therefore, we are now here.
Okay, so now
it's too late.
So okay, beautiful transition.
This has happened.
All right.
So now is not the time for me. I mean, they were on the news and they were saying all these people from outside are coming down here, and that's who's really protesting. Well, what's wrong with that statement? Isn't that what the segregationists said?
Yep.
When the civil rights workers went down south,
100%
there's
agree.
all these outsiders coming.
And
well, they're coming because they think what happened is wrong.
Right,
and
wrong,
it
and
was
also you
wrong.
get right. And you got the people who go down to support the cause. You go down to get the ones who fight the cause.
Right. So I do think outsiders should go to Ferguson's.
I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to people using this as a platform to, you know, get out a good message. I have the issue of all these people who are stating as you just said it in the transcript. It is. They're convinced of their position, and we can't have that dialogue back and forth.
Yeah, we're past
just
that.
like you said, like we can't have it. That's not fair. That's not fair to society. That's not fair to individuals. And here's what I'm going to say. To anybody who thinks you can't have the conversation with somebody who's trying to have the conversation with you, perhaps the person who can't have it, that needs to be that point of humility to say, okay, maybe one more time, we try. And unfortunately, right, that's forgiveness, right? And unfortunately, then there's the other side, which is there's enough people who are sitting there going, I don't need to have it. Their arrogance stops them from having it. And you get it because I think there's two sides to that coin.
There's two sides to that coin. But again, like I said, I've got 20 years on you.
Right.
Right? I've got 20 years on you.
Yeah.
My mother had 27 years on me.
Yep.
And so the longer you live, the more you see, and you say, you know what? It's like I just woke up yesterday and nothing's changed.
And that is...
And if you have a child, I'm telling you, I mean, it doesn't, and I don't know how to express this any better. I don't really care what happened in the car. I can't get past the body laying in the street.
Yeah, I get it.
If that was Najir laying in the street, it wouldn't matter to nothing else matters to me. All I know, he's got 6-7 bullets in him, and he's laying in the street, uncovered for hours. Now, there's some of us that had a conversation about that. I can't speak for that young man's mother, but I would be willing for them to shoot me as I walk down that street to cover his body. I would be willing, and I don't care how he got there.
And I think that that's a very valid point. But we probably can't even get to that conversation right now. Because there's, and again, taking now, well, let's jump out of the Ferguson, jump out of the Burger King, and let's make it more principled in the individual.
Yeah, we can have the academic conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like more the academic piece. I heard, I was having this conversation with somebody today, a general conversation around it, more of the academic. And he says, there's a one-liner that just comes to mind. He says, I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. Right?
Yeah, I'm an introvert who's lost her inhibitions. Yeah.
That's it, right? So it's the idea right here that there's either this like massive ego that really has no confidence behind it, so it's very hollow. Mm-hmm. And then there are some which are just so tired, right? That fine, I'll speak up, but it's going to fall on deaf ears. It's like we are building these barriers around relationship. I'm sorry, between relationship, not around, between relationship, and it's dangerous. It's a problem. It's problematic, and so it's not this incredibly introspective thing.
No.
It is incredibly.
It's the stuff that empires falling are made of.
That's it. That's it. And that's what I'm looking at all of these people.
You can't have a healthy society like that.
And I feel like I'm yelling at the top of my lungs, stop, I'll listen. Will you listen? No.
I'm done.
Oh, wait, I can't talk with you if you won't listen. Yeah, but you're wrong. Okay, wait, tell me, how am I wrong? Because I was there. No, you weren't. I mean, that's the thing. Like, our perspectives in life cannot be truth.
You can't see. I think that's where the trap is. If you're trying to have that conversation, because I don't watch Sean Hannity, but I've seen these clips where he's just on this tirade. And
I haven't even.
But he's posing that same question to people who are saying, well, this is what happened, and all he's saying is, but you weren't there, so you don't really know what happened. You weren't there, so you don't really know what happened.
He may have a different position on this from a community development side. I'm over here going, stop.
Right.
Go pick up trash with us. Let's go pick up trash.
But what I'm saying is that in this type of situation, saying to someone, but you weren't there, you might as well say that wall is purple. It doesn't mean anything.
And I think that's kind of the exact point, right? It's the orange juice. It's meaningless because they don't want to hear it.
No,
people don't want to hear it.
They quite honestly don't, and I mean that in all sincerity with my heart. I don't want to hear any stories about it.
Right. And again,
because last week the same thing happened, and 2 weeks ago the same thing happened.
And I think that's my bigger point is I don't want it to be about Burger King or Ferguson or who was right and who was wrong. I want it to be about me and you, and let's talk reality. Let's talk who are you inside. And it's okay to be vulnerable. I want to love you that way, and I can't love you if you're going to sit there and go, I'm not going to talk to you. But you've got to be willing to face your weaknesses. You've got to be willing to.
You know,
Are you following?
and I think again, you picked this topic. You picked this topic, but I'm saying, our realities are not the same.
Correct.
Our realities are not the same.
Our
Experiences. And our experiences
right.
are not the same, and our realities are not the same.
Right.
I mean, I ended up in this Facebook debate with my niece and some other people on this topic in the academic sense. And one of the people said, but this issue of the talk, why is it necessary? Your son should just grow up in the world and just listen to authority. And then finally, I bowed out of the conversation and said, it's too circular because you'll never understand what it is I'm talking about. I'm done. We could go around in a circle.
And I think that's exactly it. That person, here's the reality. There's very few people who would be unable to understand a reasonable conversation. They just have to be willing to hear it.
Right. And if you want to talk about the problems that we have in something like Ferguson, the school system, I can guarantee you, if the police officers in Ferguson lived in Ferguson, actually lived
right.
in that community, the relationship would be better.
And I think that, and not going back to Ferguson, you just said it, our realities are different. And what I really wanted to kind of get across tonight is this: our realities may be different, our perceptions may be different, our opinions may be different, yet there is still only one truth.
And we'll never know what that is.
And here's the reality. But if we seek that truth together, if we seek to find truth with the sole purpose of finding truth, it may hurt. It may rip some old scar, like it may rip scabs open, right? It may rip us apart. It may reveal to us a part of us that we don't want to see and we don't even want to acknowledge because of, wow, I never saw it that way before, and I'm sorry how much that hurt. Now I see your reality. Now we can have a better conversation. But if we determine that our reality is truth, we can never have integrity. And if we can't have integrity, there's no foundation. It's weak, and that's it. It's the imploding. And if that's what we're seeing right now is the imploding of a society, we either get to sit back and watch it happen, and for those of you who just sit back and want to just claim it all your way, know that you're a big reason that it's imploding. Right? That's kind of the point. But if you are willing to go, all right, I'm a part of the problem, right down to my very core. Everything about me could be wrong, but we're going to pursue the truth together because there is a truth. Now a different conversation happens. How do we have that conversation?
You're not baiting me.
No, I'm not baiting you. That's the point of tonight's thing, all right?
No, I understand.
And that's
it's just very difficult to have a philosophical discussion about a topic like that.
It is.
It can only be philosophical. I mean, I feel like it can only be philosophical,
and then
because reality gets in the way.
And if we could, and then I'm going to say, let's bring it back to the personal side, because if we take away our opinions on businesses moving out and our opinions on what happens in tragic situations, if we can take all of that out and make it about me and you. And I trust that you're going to be honest with me in this conversation. You trust that I'm going to do my best to be honest with you, and that we may have communication barriers, maybe I don't have good enough language skills or whatever it is, but we trust that we're going after the good for one another. We can set aside all the philosophical, except for one thing, ourself.
But I do think that even in this thing that's going on with Ferguson, I think that those relationships already exist on a personal level. I think that does happen on a personal level. I think that already happens.
More people to do it.
I think it does happen on a personal level. What we're commenting on is something that is happening in the media, which makes it very different. We're trying to take something that, because you're talking, and that's why I say it's kind of a different conversation. You and I talking about something, whether I'm the kid and you're the cop, it's still very different than trying to take that situation and say, well, why can't we do this?
And
Because I think we all have personal relationships that we get beyond, not necessarily beyond, but we learn from each other.
Yeah.
We share our experiences and we look for certain truths.
How about if I say it this way? For those people online, since right now, like Facebook is the way we interact on society, maybe we need to be willing to let those guards down like we do in a personal situation a little bit. Because we're having national conversations. We're having international conversations right now. But we're having them with big walls up. And that to me is that is more about this thing about truth. And again, I don't want to. I in no way do I. And I don't even know how much of an opinion I have on the whole Ferguson thing because I haven't dove into it for exactly the same thing you're talking about. It's a sad, tragic problem, and there's 1,000 things wrong with it. There's 1,000 problems that's the spark, and that's probably why I haven't dove into it because we have them in Rochester. You know, it's in our own backyard.
Right.
So that's kind of. I love your email though. And I was like, oh, we're talking about truth.
That was my Yeah, I was like, what now?
But and that's the thing. It really is less introspection and more like a willingness that we pursue it together.
No, and I totally understand what you're saying, and I think on a personal level that does happen. It happens every day. I have that much faith that it happens every day. That we communicate with people who we have differences with.
Well, see, there you go. You've got 20 years on me. Maybe in 20 years it'll happen every day.
Maybe in 20 years it'll happen every day. But then you have these situations where you can't bring it down to that level because when it comes to that level, I mean, in the case of Ferguson, I can't detach myself from it because I feel Najir when I see that. There's no way for me to say, but Chuck and I are having this conversation because we're seeking the truth. Because I know that could just as easily be Najir. I know could be him. And so there's no way I can have a philosophical discussion about that at that social level. I can have an individual discussion.
Right.
And we're talking about it in philosophical terms and academic terms. But we can't use that situation to make our point, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, I do understand that.
Because I can't make that.
I guess, you know what, in the end, I just see that if we would accept the fact that we don't know the truth, maybe we could diffuse the situation a little bit.
And that's what I'm saying. It's too
personal.
It's too personal in order to say, I don't know what the truth is. I don't really know what happened. Because for many of us, we could make a list of names. Easily make a list of names and say, well, I don't know why so-and-so who was handcuffed in the back of the police car and it was caught on the dash cam, literally suffocated and died in an hour and a half. I don't know the truth of that.
Right.
I only know that it happened.
It happened, and there's those pieces, and I guess that is and I hear you. It's tough to have those national and international or social or broad conversations, but I almost feel like we need to. I almost feel like we need to start figuring out how to have those conversations.
But you know what I think?
And how about just this?
I think instead of conversations, like do stuff.
Yeah,
and that's what I mean.
That's fair enough.
And I mean in the simplest way, and that's why I use that example. We're talking about the Rochester City Schools and how terrible they are. But we also have teachers who don't live in the community. They're not invested in the community.
That's right.
They're not. That doesn't make them bad people. But I'm just saying, if you had to live in that community and teach your children and the children of the community in which you live, your perspective would be different.
Would be changed.
And so I say, we don't need to have a conversation. Let's change what we do. Let's change what
100%. 100%. And that's I guess ultimately, yes. But we can't reach those actions based on misbeliefs. Because then the actions we're going to take aren't going to accomplish what we in the end want to.
Yeah, but
you're coming at that. Hold on.
But something that requires someone to be a resident in the city in which
hold
they
on.
work.
Well, I was just going to say, you're coming at it from your experience, thinking that people who take the action in that capacity, that is the good action. But a lot of people aren't because they're just convinced of their own, I got it. You know, I got it. It's up here in my head. It's up here in my head. I got all the knowledge. And this conversation I just had upstairs. It's interesting when you have all the knowledge and you got all the policies and you start to see the policies being implemented, but the result of the policy is totally different. The result of the action, even the intended result, is considerably different because you never got to the heart of the matter.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying is I think we have to get to the heart of the matter. But I think we have to get to Real Talk 360.
Yes.
But hey, look at who joined us tonight. Mike Nichols joined us. It's about time. Where's our points from Detroit? Where's the trash? Get out. I've seen pictures of Detroit. There's hundreds of bags to be picked up.
He's
yeah,
on.
he's finally listening. Yeah, he's finally on.
He's on.
Yeah,
Hi,
Detroit.
Mike.
No, he posted with a bag.
Did he?
Yeah.
About time. Thank you. He's been out in Detroit. We haven't heard from him. He doesn't call.
You don't write.
text.
You don't call.
I called him. I've texted. I've Facebooked him. Now I'm calling him out publicly. Get out there and get some more trash.
That shit called love.
and all I did was try to correct her grammar, and she thinks I like her.
All right, so with that, we're going to end Verbum, and we'll have 360 up here in just a minute.
That was great.